I held the wine glass with the careful grip of someone who has learned to manage fragile things. The Riedel stemware at Redwood Crest Winery is expensive. My mother mentions this fact at regular intervals, as though the cost of glassware determines the legitimacy of celebration. Around the long oak table, arranged on the terrace that overlooks the valley in that particular golden hour of late September, my family was assembled. The light was doing its work, turning the vineyard into something almost reasonable to look at. It was a Friday evening. I had driven up from San Francisco that afternoon, my car climbing through the familiar roads with the dull certainty of habit. The promotion at Harman & Associates had been finalized 2 weeks prior. Senior architectural designer. A 10% raise, which in San Francisco terms meant I could now genuinely afford the property I'd been following in Tahoe, not the starter cabin, but the one with the restored foundation and the view that made something in my chest settle. I had called my mother with the news. She had made the appropriate sounds. And then she had said, "Your father wants to celebrate. Sunday dinner. Here." The table was set with precision. My mother has opinions about such things. White linens. The good silver. Candles that cost more than they should. My father sat at the head, his posture still commanding at 63, his hands folded on the table in the way that suggests he is thinking about something important. My brother Nathan occupied his usual position to my father's right, the position of consequence. He was wearing the casual linen shirt that read as expensive to the uninitiated, though I recognized it as the shirt he wore when he wanted to appear thoughtfully successful. My mother was at the opposite end of the table from my father, which meant she was positioned to observe everyone equally. Aunt Margaret had come up from Sacramento, her presence adding a dimension of audience to the evening. My grandmother Helen sat to my left, her hands trembling slightly as she brought water to her lips. We were halfway through the main course when my father cleared his throat in the specific way that meant he was about to be significant. "Your mother and I wanted to acknowledge what's been happening," he said. He looked at me. "The promotion is impressive, Emily. It's good timing for us. For the family." I kept my eyes on my plate. The fish was perfectly cooked. I had already noticed this. "Thank you," I said. "We've been thinking about what comes next," he continued. "Nathan's been managing the winery well, but expansion requires capital. The Mondervie property down the road is becoming available. Nathan's been working on projections. With your financial position now, we could move quickly." I set my fork down. Carefully. The sound it made against the plate was very small. My mother leaned forward with the expression of warm concern that I had learned, over 32 years, to recognize as a mask. "We don't want you to feel pressured," she said, which is precisely what people say when they are absolutely intending to pressure you. "But family investments are how dynasties are built. Your father's father." "Emily makes good money," and my father interrupted, as though I was not sitting at the table. "Finally." The word "if finally" landed like something that should have been caught before it fell. Finally. As though my salary history up to this point had been a preliminary phase. As though my 15 years of work, the contracts I had secured, the designs that had been featured in trade publications, the fact that I had saved enough money to consider serious real estate purchases, had all been something to endure before I became actually useful. "Nathan's been making good progress," and my father was saying now. He was looking at Nathan with the expression that I remember from childhood, the expression that said Nathan was the one who mattered. "But he needs backing. The numbers are solid. We're looking at maybe $500,000 to start. The return projections." I lifted my wine glass. I was not conscious of deciding to do this. It was a gesture of pause, or perhaps a gesture of self-protection. A way of creating a brief moment in which I did not have to respond. The glass was half full, a particular red from the 2018 vintage, something my brother had produced with competent mediocrity and which my parents discussed as though he had invented fermentation itself. The glass fell. I did not drop it. I simply ceased to hold it. My hand opened as though responding to an instruction my mind had not consciously given. The wine spread across the white tablecloth in a pattern that was almost beautiful, a kind of deep red bloom that expanded in all directions, then began to pool. The glass itself remained intact, lying on its side, a small empty vessel among the stain it had created. There is a particular quality of silence that follows such an accident at a formal table. It is not silence exactly, but rather the careful modulation of sound, the slight shift of chairs, the small intake of my mother's breath, the careful way my father's expression shifted from authority to something more complex. "I'm sorry," I said, which was the expected thing to say, though I was not certain what I was apologizing for. I reached for my napkin, then stopped. There seemed no point in dabbing at something so thoroughly spilled. "It's just a glass," and my grandmother Helen said quietly. Her hand, trembling with age, reached over and squeezed my arm. "These things happen," Aunt Margaret added, in the tone of someone making a statement that she knows is true but feels compelled to repeat anyway. My mother had already signaled to the household staff. She did not call them that, but the designation was accurate. Someone appeared with efficiency and began to clean. The evening continued, though something had shifted in its tenor. The conversation moved to safer topics. The harvest had been good. There were weather concerns for the following spring. Nathan mentioned a restaurant he had been to in Napa, describing it with the peculiar enthusiasm of someone reporting about a place that did not quite meet his expectations, but that he was determined to approve of. I did not stay the night, though I usually did. I drove back to San Francisco on roads that were dark and nearly empty, arriving at my condo in the Marina district at nearly midnight. I poured water from a glass that I had purchased for myself, and I sat in my living room with the city lights spread out below like something I was supposed to believe in. It took me 3 days to understand that the dinner had been planned. I learned this through the most contemporary of revelations. I received an email forwards, an accident of a message chain that had been left visible in the reply history. My mother had written to my father and Nathan. "Proud of you," as she had said, for the way you were handling her. Gentle but clear. The email had been sent on a Tuesday morning. The dinner had been scheduled for that Friday evening. That same afternoon, I met with Diane Foster in her office at Harman & Associates. Diane held the title of partner in charge, though the real nature of her authority was more fundamental. She was the kind of person who understood how institutions worked and also, crucially, understood what it meant to refuse to be weaponized by them. She had been at the firm for 22 years. She had never married. She had never had children. And she had, on multiple occasions, informed me that the first skill I needed to develop as a woman in architecture was the ability to distinguish between loyalty and coercion. "Tell me about your family," she said, which was unusual for her. She was not someone who typically inquired into personal matters. I described the dinner. I did not use particularly emotional language. I simply laid out the sequence of events, the emails, the framing of the promotion as though it had been provisional until the moment my family discovered my increased earning capacity. Diane listened. She did not interrupt. When I finished, she said, "Your brother manages a winery?" "Yes. He's been there for about 8 years. He's not particularly good at it, but my father treats him as though he invented wine itself." "Is the winery sustainable?" "Marginally. The margins are thin. There was a failed expansion 5 years ago. Nathan borrowed against assets and lost most of the capital to a vineyard disease. My aunt lent him money to keep it afloat. There was an expansion attempt 3 years ago that also failed. The financials are not stable. I've looked at them. Diane nodded. She was thinking about something. I could see the particular quality of her attention shift. Have you considered that your family might be financially desperate? Yes, EI said. But that's not actually my problem to solve. Correct, Diane said. It isn't. I want you to understand something, Emily. Your promotion was earned. I participated in that decision. The committee discussed candidates for 6 weeks. You were chosen because you have demonstrated competence, reliability, and the ability to manage complex projects with minimal supervision. This was not conditional on your family's financial situation. It was not provisional. It is real. Your money is yours. Your decisions are yours. And your family's financial instability is not a debt you owe them. I had not cried in Diane's office. But I had felt something release in my chest, a tension that I had not been entirely aware I was carrying. Over the following weeks, I began to take what seemed like reasonable precautions. I changed the passwords on my bank accounts, not because I believed my family would attempt unauthorized access, but because the possibility of it seemed suddenly real. I set up credit alerts. I requested that my bank contact me only through written communication, never by phone. This because my mother had once, years ago, called my previous bank claiming to be me, attempting to establish a credit line. They had refused, but the attempt had registered in my memory as a useful data point about the boundaries of what she believed she was entitled to do. I compiled my financial records into spreadsheets. I compared the returns on various investment vehicles. I created a separate document titled Itarho Property Analysis and filled it with information about the cabin I wanted. The property was called Clearview. It was a completely absurd name, but it was accurate. The house sat on a ridge that overlooked the lake, the mountains beyond, the sky in all directions. It had been built in the 1970s by someone with specific ideas about what constituted living space, and it had been carefully maintained by the woman who had owned it for the past 40 years and who was now moving to Portland to be closer to her daughter. The property was priced at $1.8 million. With my new salary and the savings I had accumulated, the mortgage was feasible. I had been pre-approved. There was a broker, Laura Kim, who had been remarkably patient with my questions about comparative property values and long-term appreciation. My brother called me on a Wednesday evening in early October. "We should talk about the winery," he said. His voice had the particular cadence of someone who was attempting to sound both casual and significant. "Okay," I said. I was sitting at my kitchen counter. I had made tea but had not drunk it. "The expansion is real, Emily. This isn't just Dad's idea. There's market opportunity. The Mondovi property has incredible bones. With proper management and capital investment, we could triple production within 5 years. Have you consulted with a business analyst?" I asked. "What? No, why would I?" "An independent business analyst. Someone with experience in agricultural expansion and market projections. Not someone who stands to benefit from you securing capital." There was a pause. I could hear him breathing. "Emily, I'm your brother. We're family. This should be straightforward." "That's actually the core problem," I said. "The fact that you believe that blood relationship means I should provide financial capital for a business venture that I do not control and do not believe is sound. You haven't even seen the projections. I've seen your financial statements for the past 8 years. I have reviewed every expansion you've attempted. I am not going to fund this." I hung up the phone. Not abruptly, but with finality. I was surprised by how calm I felt. The next morning, I received an email from my father. "Your mother is very hurt," he wrote. She had expectations that you would help the family. Nathan works very hard. He deserves support. Your mother raised you to be responsible. I had hoped you would demonstrate that. We will be discussing this further. I expect you to reconsider your position. I forwarded the email to Diane. She read it with the same careful attention she gave to architectural specifications. Do you want to respond? She asked. I don't think there's anything to respond to, I said. He's not asking a question. He's making a statement about what he expects. Then don't respond, she said. At least not yet. Document this. Save it. If the pressure continues, we may need it. Do you think the pressure will continue? Yes, Diane said. I absolutely do. She was correct. The pressure continued in the way that family pressure does, not dramatic, but persistent. Small things at first. My mother sent me an article about the benefits of family investment, with a note saying she thought it might be a helpful context. My father called and talked about his regrets regarding various financial decisions in his own life, the property he didn't buy, the business he didn't invest in. Don't be like me, he said, without specifying what he meant. My grandmother called and asked me to reconsider for the sake of family unity. Then it became less small. My mother asked if she could bring by some wine. I said no, that I was busy. She came anyway, arriving at my building at 8 o'clock on a Thursday evening, carrying a bottle, not from the current production, but from 1998, a vintage that held particular significance. This is from the year your brother took over management, she said. I've been saving it for an important occasion. I invited her into my condo because refusing to do so would have created the kind of scene I did not have the energy for. She sat on my sofa and looked around the space with a particular gaze of someone cataloguing and evaluating. This is very nice, she said, which meant she did not think it was nice at all. Though I suppose for the price, it could be nicer. You're paying San Francisco real estate prices for a building that's not particularly distinguished. I like it, I said. Of course you do, she said. But consider what you could do with the space if you had more capital. Redwood Crest has a beautiful cottage on the Eastern Ridge. Your father purchased it 15 years ago. It's yours if you want it. A free property. In exchange for your help with the expansion. I sat with this for a moment. The weight of what she was offering, not as a gift, but as a transaction, a direct exchange of physical property for my capital. I don't want the cottage, I said. You haven't even seen it recently, she said. Her voice had shifted. It was no longer the voice of someone making an offer, but the voice of someone disappointed by an unreasonable rejection. I know I haven't, I said. I don't want it. She set the bottle of wine on my coffee table with slightly more force than was necessary. I came here hoping to make this easy for you, she said. But you're making it difficult. Nathan needs you. Your father needs you. I need you. And you're choosing to be selfish. I'm choosing to be autonomous, I said. Those aren't the same thing. She left shortly after. She took the bottle with her, which I appreciated as a practical decision if not a meaningful one. The following week, I learned that my mortgage broker had been contacted. Laura Kim called me on a Tuesday morning. I'm not sure how to bring this up, she said, but someone called asking questions about your application. They said they were a family member, and they were concerned about whether you were financially stable enough to take on a property of this price point. Who called? I asked, though I already knew. Your mother, Laura said. I think. The person on the phone declined to leave a specific name. I was quiet for a very long time. I want to be clear, Alora said, that this doesn't affect your application. You're approved. You exceed the requirements. I'm telling you because I believe you have the right to know. But this is not going to impact your ability to purchase the property. Thank you, I said. Thank you for telling me. That evening, I sent my mother an email. I kept it brief. Please do not contact my financial institutions, I wrote. This is my final warning on this matter. If it happens again, I will be consulting with an attorney. She did not respond. But I knew she had read it. She always reads emails immediately, a habit that frequently resulted in her responding within minutes. The silence was its own kind of communication. The push continued to escalate in other directions. My father called me at work. Diane's assistant transferred the call to my office, and I took it, though I should not have. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, my father said. But I want you to understand that families are built on sacrifice. Your brother sacrificed his career opportunities to manage the winery. Your mother has sacrificed her independence to maintain family unity. I have sacrificed my retirement timeline to support the business. We all contribute. And now we're asking you to contribute. It's not unreasonable. It is, I said, when the contribution you're asking for gives me no control over the outcome and no guarantee of return. You're not asking me to invest. You're asking me to subsidize a failing business run by someone with a demonstrated pattern of poor management. That's a terrible thing to say about your brother. It's a true thing, I said. And I'm not going to fund it based on family obligation. Then you're not part of this family, my father said. And he hung up. I sat very still after the phone disconnected. The silence in my office felt enormous. Diane appeared in the doorway 15 minutes later. She had a particular ability to perceive when something had happened, even when there was no external evidence of it. Your family just cut off contact with you? She asked. How did you? Your face, she said. Also, I've been working in this industry for 2 decades. I've seen family pressure on women dozens of times. It follows a predictable arc: gentle manipulation, financial incentives, public shaming, isolation. You're at the isolation phase. He said, I'm not part of the family anymore. Your father, as she said, is making a threat. He's hoping it will destabilize you into compliance. It won't, because you're more grounded than that. But you need to be prepared for the next phase. What's the next phase? They'll try to leverage your extended family, she said. Bring in your grandmother, your aunt. Create a sense that you're causing harm to people you love. They'll frame your boundaries as abandonment. She was correct, though the accuracy did not make it any easier. My grandmother called me. She cried. She said that my father had told her I had refused to help Nathan, and that I had called the family business a failing, and that this had caused him tremendous pain. She did not understand, she said, why I would want to hurt my family this way. I don't want to hurt anyone, I told her. I want to maintain my own financial autonomy. That's the same thing, though, my grandmother said. Don't you see? By refusing to help, you're hurting all of us. Grandmother, I said carefully, that's not actually true. My refusal to fund their business does not cause them physical harm. It simply means they have to make different choices. It means my brother has to make better decisions, or the business has to scale back, or my parents have to consider the winery as a long-term liability rather than an asset. None of those things are actually harmful. They're just uncomfortable. But she was crying too hard to hear me. I ended the call gently and sat with the weight of it. In late October, I received a text message from my Aunt Margaret. "I know what's happening," it said. "I'm sorry. I'm in between on this one. But I wanted you to know I see you." I called her immediately. "I can't take sides in family dynamics," as she said when she answered. "That's not who I am. But I wanted to tell you that I loaned Nathan $50,000 5 years ago when the last expansion failed. He has never repaid me. I have never asked him to repay me, because his family, and I have the capacity to absorb the loss. But I understand your position. I understand your refusal. And I wanted you to know that I don't think you're selfish." "Thank you," I said. "That means something." "Your brother is going to keep failing at business," as she said, "until your family stops enabling it. Your parents are going to keep pressuring you until you establish a firm boundary. Your father is going to keep threatening you until you stop responding to the threats. None of this will change unless you make a change." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm not backing down." 2 weeks after my last conversation with my father, my mother called with a different tone. It was softer, almost wounded. "Your father and I want to do a family gathering," she said. "Just a small dinner. At the house. We've been hurt by the distance you've created. We'd like to repair it." I considered this carefully. There was something in me that wanted to believe it. Something that wanted to think that everyone could move past the pressure and the manipulation and simply choose to be kind to each other. "I'll think about it," I said. What I did instead was call Laura Kim and tell her I wanted to make an offer on Clearview. The offer was accepted 3 days later. The closing would happen in early December. I began the process of securing the mortgage. I did not tell my family. Instead, I sent emails. I confirmed that I was well. I said that I hoped everyone was healthy. I did not respond to requests for meetings or phone calls. I had documentation now, screenshots of the emails about me as a financial solution, the contact with my mortgage broker, the public social media posts from my cousin that referenced my commitment to the winery expansion. The documentation was calm and clear, a paper trail of escalating coercion. My mother sent me a text message at midnight on a Tuesday. "We need to talk about the viability of this rift. It's not healthy. Please come to dinner on Friday." I did not respond to the text. But I did confirm with Laura Kim that all of the purchase documents were in order. The family dinner was held on a Friday evening in November, at Redwood Crest Winery. I arrived at 5 o'clock, before the official time, which gave me space to move through the house, to understand the landscape, to prepare myself mentally. My grandmother was there, looking frail in the way she had begun to look frail. My Aunt Margaret was there, positioned at a slight remove from the central family. My brother Nathan wore his careful expression, the one that suggested he was about to be significant. My father sat at the head of a long table in the formal dining room, which was a choice that suggested he had decided this was to be formal. My mother remained standing, moving between rooms with the suggestion of control. They had prepared documents. Actual legal documents, sitting at place settings around the table like place cards. I picked one up and saw that it was a promissory note, already partially filled in with my name, my address, an amount of $750,000, and terms of repayment that seemed designed to be perpetually incomplete. "We've asked a lawyer to draw these up," and my father said. "It's a formal investment structure. You invest the capital, and we pay you back with interest. It's all legitimate, all documented." "Where's the collateral?" I asked. My father looked at Nathan, who looked at my mother, who looked back at my father. "The winery is the collateral," and my father said. "The winery is worth approximately $2.3 million based on current market valuations," I said. and it's already leveraged against multiple loans. So my collateral position would be tertiary at best. And I wouldn't have any management control. This isn't an investment. This is a gift that's been dressed up as an investment to make my family feel less guilt about asking for money they haven't earned. That's a harsh assessment, my mother said. It's an accurate assessment, I said. I have documents. Emails between the three of you planning this gathering. Records of you contacting my mortgage broker. Financial statements for the winery showing consistent underperformance. I've been documenting everything since the day of the first dinner when you decided my promotion should belong to the family. There was a particular quality of silence that followed this statement. It was not the silence of shock, but the silence of exposure, the moment when people who have been operating behind a constructed narrative suddenly have to confront the reality that the narrative has been dismantled. You recorded us? My brother asked. I documented my own communications, I said. I saved emails. I took screenshots. I did not record anyone without consent. But I have preserved evidence of a coordinated effort to pressure me into financial decisions that benefit you at my expense. My father stood up. His face had shifted from authoritative to genuinely angry. You are turning this into something ugly, he said. I'm calling it what it is, I said. You are not interested in my well-being. You are interested in my capital. When I refused to provide it, you attempted to coerce me. You contacted my financial institutions. You brought in extended family. You made me feel like I was the problem, when the actual problem is that my brother has failed at managing a business, and instead of accepting that, you decided I should solve it with my money. Nathan has worked hard, my mother said. Nathan has been given every advantage, I said. He was given management of the winery at age 24. He was given access to family capital when his decisions failed. He was given credit and support and belief even when the evidence didn't support it. And I watched all of that happen while being told the business was not for women, while being excluded from decisions, while being encouraged to pursue architecture as though it was a hobby I could drop if the family needed me. My grandmother was crying silently. I am not angry at any of you, I said, which was the truth and also surprising to me. I'm not angry. But I'm also not going to give you my money. I'm not going to set aside my own autonomy to support family decisions I don't agree with. I'm going to take that money, and I'm going to purchase property that I own, and I'm going to build a life that belongs to me. And you can either accept that or not. But my answer is not going to change. I placed the promissory note back on the table. I did not look at the faces around it. I'm leaving now, I said. I don't think there's anything else to discuss. Nobody tried to stop me. My aunt squeezed my hand as I passed her chair. My grandmother reached for me, but I was already moving. I drove back to San Francisco through the dark, and I did not cry, and I did not feel guilty, and I did not reconsider. The closing on Clearview happened on the first Friday of December. I stood in a lawyer's office in South Lake Tahoe and signed the documents that made me a property owner, and I felt something settle in my chest that I had not realized was unsettled. Laura Kim handed me the keys. They were actual brass keys, attached to a wooden tag with the property number carved into it. You did it, as she said. Welcome to the mountains. I drove up to the property that afternoon. The house sat on the ridge exactly as I remembered it. The view extended in all directions. The sky was clear, and the lake below reflected it with perfect accuracy, and the mountains beyond were the kind of blue they become when winter is approaching. I walked through the rooms alone. The previous owner had left it clean. There were no ghosts here, no history that wasn't mine to make. I stood in what would be my kitchen and looked out the window at the view, and I felt the kind of peace that comes from having made a difficult choice and discovered that it was the right one. My phone buzzed. A text message from my father, forwarded to my mother, forwarded to my grandmother, who forwarded it to me through Aunt Margaret. We owe you an apology. I did not respond to it. There would be time for that, possibly, or possibly not. What I had learned was that family loyalty did not require financial sacrifice. That love did not require the surrender of autonomy. That being part of a family unit did not mean being available for extraction of resources. I returned to San Francisco the following afternoon. My condo felt smaller than I remembered it, temporary in a way it hadn't before. I had a home now, a place that was entirely mine, a property that would build equity for my retirement and my future and the choices I wanted to make. That evening, I sat by my living room window and watched the city lights spread out below. The city was beautiful in a particular way, not natural, but created, built by thousands of people each making their own choices about how to construct their lives. I thought about my brother, who would have to find another solution to the winery's problems. I thought about my father, who would have to confront his own financial limitations. I thought about my mother, who would have to accept that coercion does not create lasting family bonds. And I thought about myself, how I had learned that boundaries were not cruelty, and that refusal was not abandonment, and that the most powerful thing a person could do was to refuse to be weaponized by the people who were supposed to love them. I was 32 years old. I had built a career. I owned a home in the mountains. And I had chosen myself, which was the one choice that nobody could make for me, and which, it turned out, had been available all along. The city lights continued their small declarations of electricity and life. The view did not change. The night did not change. But I had changed, and that change felt permanent, solid, like a foundation that could support whatever came next. I lifted my water glass, carefully, this time, and I made a quiet toast to myself, to the woman who had finally learned to hold what mattered and to let go of everything else.